Modern culture treats the end of the world as something that might happen one day in the future, but ancient people believed something far more disturbing, that the world had already ended before, and that humanity was living in what came after, across unrelated civilizations separated by oceans and centuries. The same story appears again and again. There was an earlier age, more advanced or more pure, that was destroyed by a global catastrophe. What survived was not a beginning, but a remainder. In Mesopotamian myths, the world before the flood was wiped away completely, leaving only fragments of knowledge carried forward by a few survivors. In ancient India, time was divided into cycles called yugas, each one ending in collapse before restarting again. The present age was not the first, and not the best, but the last and weakest. In Greek philosophy, history was not a straight line but a wheel, endlessly repeating destruction and rebirth. The idea of progress did not exist. Instead, decline was expected. Ancient people believed that civilization moved away from perfection, not toward it. They believed the earth itself had been reset. Flood myths are the most obvious example. But they are not isolated stories. They appear on every inhabited continent. Cultures with no contact described overwhelming waters, fire from the sky, darkness that lasted for years, and the sudden disappearance of entire peoples. To ancient minds, these were not metaphors. They were memories. The survivors were not heroes, but witnesses. They passed down warnings, not hope. Many traditions say that after the catastrophe, humans forgot what they once knew. Skills were lost, lifespans shortened, knowledge became myth. What we now call gods were often described as teachers who arrived after the destruction to rebuild order. But even these figures spoke of earlier worlds that failed. The frightening implication is that ancient people did not believe they were living at the peak of history. They believed they were living after a fall. This explains why so many ancient cultures were obsessed with preserving knowledge rather than innovating. They built monuments to last, not to improve. They carved warnings into stone. They believed the same forces that destroyed the previous world were still present and would return. Earthquakes, floods, plagues, and celestial events were not random disasters, but reminders of what had already happened once before. To them, the question was never if the world would end again, but when. This worldview created a deep sense of fatalism. Humans were not masters of nature. They were temporary occupants of a fragile cycle. Even creation myths often begin not with creation, but with restoration. The world was repaired, not born. Ancient calendars did not count endlessly forward. They reset. Time itself was seen as something that could break. Modern society assumes that knowledge accumulates, that technology always advances, and that tomorrow must be better than yesterday. Ancient people believed the opposite. They believed each generation knew less than the one before. That belief may sound pessimistic, but it came from a place of experience, or at least inherited memory. The ruins scattered across the world reinforced it. Massive stone structures with unknown purposes suggested that someone before had capabilities now lost. Ancient people did not ask who built them. They asked what destroyed them. In this way, ancient history is less a story of beginnings and more a story of survival. The earth, in their minds, was not young. It was old, scarred, and repeatedly erased. If they were right, then humanity is not progressing toward an unknown future, but repeating a forgotten past. And the most unsettling question remains the same one ancient people asked themselves. If the world already ended once, what makes us believe it won't happen again?